Hey, I'm Pastor Jackie Jackson, and welcome to another part of our videos from our Storyteller series. I'm going to be reading one of the stories from R.W. Schambach's book. This one is very close to my heart. I do a lot of outreach. It's really the heart and soul of what I do. And this story is along those lines. It's a little longer than the ones that I usually will read to you, so I'm going to dive right in and get right to it here, because it really speaks for itself. All right, it's called From Junk to Jesus. I have many friends who have helped partner with my ministry over the years. A lot of them have great stories of what God has done for them through my ministry. I'll never forget the story of a certain partner of mine, Brother James Wallace, another lost cause, who was transformed by the power of Christ. In August of 1975, I had my tent up in the Bronx, New York. Many preachers are afraid to go into the ghetto, into a place like the Bronx. But I love to take the gospel where it is needed. I love this story. I love to take it right into the heart of the inner city, to see God perform miracles and deliver those who are bound by the devil. You see, a lot of these folks won't set foot in a church, so I bring church to them. People who wouldn't go into a church come pouring into my tent meetings, and that's when God takes over. Now, James Wallace was just that kind of person. He was raised in one of the most hellish neighborhoods in the Bronx. At an early age, he had experimented with many different types of pills and drugs. And as a teenager, he had become an alcoholic. Circumstances from his environment and his own young rebellion filled him with a violent rage. He broke the law often and found himself in and out of police precincts and jail. James adopted the attitude of his environment. He trusted no one but himself. Eventually, he became a racist, hating all white people. In his early 20s, James was living with his girlfriend, not wanting to marry her because he knew he would be a high-risk father in many ways. Life went from bad to worse when the doctors told him he had cirrhosis of the liver. James needed help. In the eyes of man, he was not a likely candidate for salvation. But what is impossible with man is possible with God. One day, James pulled up in his car at 149th Street and the major Deegan Expressway in the Bronx. He was parked in front of a gospel tent that was as big as a football field. Bigger than the picture you see behind you, for sure. It looked like a circus tent. All he could hear was the voice of a preacher who was shouting about something. James felt that anger rising up within him. The preacher was a white man, and as far as he could tell, he was preaching about a white God named Jesus. Against his better judgment, James went inside to see what was happening. The preacher, R.W. Schambach, was telling people that Jesus could free them from sin, heal their bodies, and deliver them from addictions. Then he asked some people from the vast audience to come forward and tell others what Jesus had done for them. James heard stories of deaf ears opening, drug addicts being instantly set free, and people being healed from cancer. One thread of every story was the same. Each of the storytellers said Jesus had done the work in their lives. At first, James refused to believe what he was hearing. He thought all preachers were either pimps or sissies. Yet James could not deny there was something powerful and real happening under that tent. Night after night, he would come back to listen. Then one night, James mustered up the courage to go forward and let the preacher pray for him. When the preacher prayed for him, James said a prayer. God, if you're real, let me feel something. James didn't feel anything right away. In his mind, he was saying, see, I knew this thing was fake. Nothing happened. He went right across the street to a bar and ordered some drinks. But that night he realized something. He had lost his taste, his need for alcohol. He had no more shakes. He had no withdrawal symptoms. He was free from alcohol, and he knew it. The next night, James went back to the tent. He knelt at the altar and asked Jesus to forgive him. When James got off his knees, he was delivered from his addictions and healed of cirrhosis of the liver. Today, he is married, has 4 children, and is pastoring a church in the Bronx. James is still partnering with my ministry today. He serves as a testimony of the power of God to set the captives free. In his own words, Jesus is the answer. He set me free from pushing dope to preaching hope, from crime to Christ, from junk to Jesus. God has the power to do anything. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this story is sometimes we see people in the inner city and we just think there's nothing that God can do for that person. And they end up being the strongest witnesses for God because they've been delivered from so much. It's the place that God loves to show out. It is so exciting because sometimes the people are so low that they're expecting something. You know, they look like they want no hope. They may say they don't have any hope, but God will touch them in such a miraculous way, and it sets things around them on fire. I'm Pastor Jackie Jackson. I hope that you've enjoyed this story and our Storyteller series. You can find out more about our ministry by logging on to www.jackiejacksonministries.com. And I want you to remember that Luke 12:32 says, "Fear not, little flock, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.